All right, happy Friday, welcome back. Concepts and training, diving into the concept of tension and when to use cables, when to not use cables, and really some things to consider. This one's actually gonna be inspired a little bit by Ben Yanes a couple months ago, talking about cable and band variations and dumbbell variations for the tricep, because a lot of times we see certain exercises. We're gonna use the dumbbell kickback or tricep kickback as one of those examples of an exercise that has a pretty poor length tension relationship when it comes to being using the dumbbell, and how we can better implement that in a training program. So when we look at 3 different implements we can use to add resistance, we have a dumbbell, yay, my little 5-pounder. We have a band or cable stack column. What I want you to see here is being able to apply tension and things to consider. So we're gonna use the dumbbell kickback kind of as that one exercise. So if we look at dumbbell kickback, getting in a position and extending that elbow backwards in this position. Things we have to consider is that a dumbbell is limited to the line of pull of gravity. So basically that dumbbell always wants to get pulled down. So when we look at this position, there's not a whole lot of gravity acting on the actual pushback. So I don't really achieve maximal tension until I get to that final end extension. So when I actually push, I'm getting a very weak pull. I'm not getting a whole lot of tension until I get towards that end range. All right. So when we start to apply that, all of a sudden we start to see that that's not going to give us a maximal contraction across the whole spectrum of range of motion. If I were to do this with a band, I'm going to get a very similar thing, because what happens as I pull that band, all of a sudden I'm getting more tension at the very end compared to out, so the tension increases, and so I get a different length tension relationship across the range of motion that I'm trying to get. Right now, obviously, this is going to apply more to more than just a cable or like a pushback with the tricep. Now, if we start to look at it with a cable, right, and this is where we're kind of go with this, being able to select the exercises that are going to be best for what we're trying to get. If I'm trying to build up my tricep, maybe it's my bicep, maybe it's even the delt, right? Things we have to think about. Well, this line of pull, now all of a sudden, if I've got a constant tension, that's the nice thing about cable stacks, right? Because all of a sudden, this back here in the column, what's happening is as I pull, you may be able to even see it here in the video, as I pull, the weight moves. So now I've got a constant line of tension on that tricep, or just on that muscle I'm trying to work. So now if I get in that position and do that kickback, well, now I've got tension applied through the whole range of motion. It's equal. I'm not getting it overloaded at the end. I'm not getting it underloaded at the beginning, because all of a sudden I take gravity out of the equation, and what happens is that weight in a cable stack column increases the amount of tension that I get across the whole length tension relationship of the muscle, right? Dumbbells are limited to gravity. They're not going to give you a full range of motion for every exercise, or at least a full length tension relationship for every exercise. A band, very similar thing, doesn't give you the full tension across the whole movement. All right, and then finally on that very last one, that cable stack or that cable is going to give you a better length tension relationship across the whole movement for that muscle. Being able to apply that tension, especially if your goal is hypertrophy or you're trying to build up some kind of strength, as an accessory for some of your other strength movements like the bench press, squat, deadlift, whatever it is. Applying that concept across a broad range of different things, right? Whether that's a machine, whether that's some dumbbell exercise used as an accessory, being able to understand the limitations of each of these, why a cable stack might be a better selection for specific exercises, and understanding that these different implements have different effects on muscle tissue, especially when it comes to length tension relationship for those different muscles. So just something to think about with length tension relationships for this week's concepts and training.